I was fired after 18 years of building the systems that kept the company running. Replaced by a tech firm promising efficiency. They thought I'd disappear. That algorithm could replace me. She told the team, we're modernizing operations, but her gaze never quite touched mine. Some positions are becoming redundant. Ethan William is my name. I oversaw the automation systems of Velwin Manufacturing in Grand Rapids, Michigan, for 17 years. Writing firmware, calibrating machinery, and creating systems that no one else understood took 17 years. Making other people look good for 17 years. Claire went on, the transition will be immediate, her voice echoed through our morning meeting. Behind us, the hum of the manufacturing floor was a sound I recognized more than my own heartbeat. We've contracted with Nixora Labs for our systems management going forward. As I stood with my arms crossed, 35 faces turned to view me, but they were curious rather than sympathetic. They were curious to see how the elderly man would react. After giving one nod, I returned to my position. I started unplugging my laptop and clearing out my drawer, which included the notepad with handwritten code sequences, the extra reading glasses, and the coffee mug my daughter had made me in 3rd grade. Since I began working there, the factory's administration has changed 3 times. For the first time, they had determined that I wasn't required. Don't shout. Don't argue. Over the years, I had seen it happen to other men who resisted and were nevertheless killed, albeit with less honor. I refused to give Claire the satisfaction she deserved. I was putting the last of my belongings in a cardboard box when she came over. She said, "Your severance package is generous," as she passed a folder across my desk. 2 months, plus your accrued vacation time. Generous? I said again. The folder remained in its original location. Ethan, try to understand. Your systems are, well, they're outdated. Nixora is implementing a complete digital transformation. Cloud-based monitoring, machine learning algorithms. It's where manufacturing is headed. My laptop bag was zipped. The calibration files, they'll reverse engineer whatever they need. She looked at her timepiece. Human resources needs to see you before you leave. I raised my box and nodded. For 8 months, Claire had been the plant manager. MBA from an esteemed academic institution. Discussed optimization techniques and efficiency measurements as if they were magic. We never once inquired about the true operation of our proprietary systems. Nobody asked why, while using machinery that was more than 10 years old, our factory had the lowest fault rate in the sector. I passed the quality control scanners that were driven by my own algorithms, the conveyor system that I had designed, and the CNC machines that I had coded. One thing Claire was correct about was that I had created antiquated systems. However, I had made them durable. And when they broke, I was the only one who could fix them because I had built them. When I began working at Velwin, we were only producing vehicle parts for 3 automakers. We had expanded into the aerospace industry and now provided precision parts to 12 automakers. I was hired right out of college by the previous owner, Arthur Bellamy, when I demonstrated to him how to rewire their first robotic arm to move 30% faster without sacrificing accuracy. He pointed to the machines and said, "Son, you speak their language. That is uncommon." Arthur allowed me to design our automation systems however I saw fit for a decade. I developed calibration procedures that extracted performance from machines that were well past their prime and wrote proprietary software for all of the major pieces of equipment. I maintained the functionality of earlier devices when manufacturers stopped supporting them. I changed their program to work with our current systems when new equipment came. Arthur's son sold the business to Tra Freight, a logistics company that expanded into manufacturing, after Arthur retired. The figures made sense, so they kept me on. When my algorithms made equipment worth $50 million function like newer units, why replace it? Then Claire showed up, young, driven, and carrying PowerPoint presentations that demonstrated how antiquated our factory was in comparison to rivals. In meetings, she never spoke directly to me, instead discussing legacy systems, as if they were illnesses that needed to be eradicated. I saw Nexra Labs people walking around the production floor 3 months ago, photographing control panels and posing questions to operators. Then I went up to Claire. "Will we be hiring consultants?" I inquired. "I'm just looking into some optimization possibilities," she said, touching her iPad. "There is no need for concern." I was unable to access the administration server the next week. Suddenly, my login credentials expired. IT expressed regret for the error, but permissions were only partially restored. I was still able to perform my duties, but Claire's consent was now needed for several administrative tasks. I brought it up to Marcus, our floor supervisor, who was also the closest thing I had to a coworker. We occasionally went fishing together on the weekends. "The word politics," he whispered. "The new manager must leave her mark. Simply keep your head down." I backed up all of my code repositories and calibration files onto my laptop that evening. My intellectual property, not company property. Without them, the systems would function properly, until they didn't. Until a sensor needed to be recalibrated or a machine strayed from tolerance. The fixes were only recorded in my private notes and in my mind. They were going to discover the true value of 17 years of institutional expertise. Human Resources and I had a 20-minute severance meeting. Signatures, benefit explanations, and my building access card being returned. Throughout, Thomas, the HR manager, avoided making eye contact. He had nearly as much time with the company as I had. When we were done, I asked, "Is there anything else you need from me before I go?" Thomas appeared uneasy. "Actually, Claire mentioned you might consider a consulting arrangement. 2 weeks to help with the transition. Paid at your current rate." It nearly made me chuckle. Downloading 17 years of knowledge takes 2 weeks. "It would give you some additional income while you job search," he stated. She suggested weakly. "I'll pass," I responded as I got to my feet. "But thanks for the offer." I passed Marcus on my way out through the manufacturing floor. He left a conversation and trailed me to the doorway. Silently, "This is Ethan," he said. I told Claire, "You're the only one who understands how these systems work together." Apparently, Nexra Labs disagrees. Marcus stated, "They're salespeople." He looked over his shoulder and said, "They don't know what they don't know. What happens when the next calibration cycle comes up? Or when the Southwest conveyor starts making that grinding noise it makes every winter?" I gave a shrug. "Not my problem anymore. Come on, man. 17 years and you're just walking away." At the door, I paused and looked up at him. "What exactly do you expect me to do? Beg for my job? Tell Claire she's making a mistake? You think that would change anything?" Marcus didn't know how to respond. I gave him a shoulder clap. "I'll call you. Maybe we can get that fishing trip in next weekend." I wouldn't call, though. And I believe Marcus understood it in his heart. I drove quietly home. No calls, no radio. Only the sound of tires on concrete. Despite having 17 years' worth of possessions, my home seemed empty. At college, my daughter was away. 3 years before, my wife and I had separated. I opened my laptop while seated in my home office chair. A notification showed up. The VPN for Velwyn Manufacturing was disconnected. It truly hit me at that point. In one workday, 17 years were gone. The late evenings spent resolving production crises. Every weekend when the lines were down, we upgraded the systems. The awareness of all the peculiarities and defects in our apparatus. I was proud that our defect rates were consistently the lowest compared to those of our competitors. "All disposable," Claire said. I glanced at the backup files I had created after opening my personal disk. Parameters for calibration. Firmware that is unique. I had prepared troubleshooting instructions, but I never shared them. I didn't intend to use them against the business. However, I also didn't intend to give them up. They had already decided. They would have to deal with the fallout. After shutting off the laptop, I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a beer. I wasn't concerned about being on call for a factory emergency for the first time in 17 years. It should have made me feel better. Rather, a chilly conviction settled in my chest. Eventually, they would give a call. When they did, I would determine the true value of 17 years of loyalty. It was 3 weeks later. I answered recruiters' calls, distributed resumes, and went fishing in the afternoons. On time, the severance payments showed up. I received condolences from old coworkers at other companies and updated my LinkedIn profile. Not even Marcus from Velwyn contacted me until a Thursday afternoon, 6 weeks after I left, when my phone rang. "I'm Claire Morton from Velwyn Manufacturing, Ethan." I allowed the stillness to drag on for too long. "Hi, Claire. I hope all is okay with you." Some of the confidence in her voice had gone. "Hey, we're having some problems with the conveyor line in the southwest, and our crew is having a hard time figuring out what's wrong. Would you be available for a brief consultation, please?" "What kinds of problems?" "Unexpected halts. Error codes that don't correspond with any available documentation. On that line, production is down roughly 20%. I shut my eyes. The conveyor in the southwest. About 3 months prior to my departure, I had alerted maintenance about it. The one that required a firmware upgrade for its controller prior to winter. I understand. What is said about it by Nixora Lab? A pause. They are still learning how to use some of our older systems. They'll work it out, I'm sure. I spoke in an impartial tone. They're executing a full digital transformation, after all. Claire cleared her throat. "Ethan, I know you may feel undervalued, but the team as a whole is being impacted. If we can't resolve this, people might lose their shifts." I was devoted to the floor workers, and she was good. However, I recalled that as I was led away, none of them had raised their voices. Finally, I said, "I'm available for consulting. $300 an hour is my charge. At least 4 hours. Paid ahead of time. Additionally, a formal contract outlining the scope of service is required. That is more than twice your previous rate of pay. I charge that for consultation. Accept it or reject it." Quiet. "After that, I'll need permission. Can I give you a call again?" "Obviously." Within an hour, she returned the call. They accepted my conditions. The following morning, I traveled to the facility, registered as a guest, and was shown to the production floor. Surrounded by irate operators and Nixora technicians, the southwestern conveyor sat idle. When Marcus saw me, he smiled with relief. "I'm glad you're here. It took me just 27 minutes to identify the issue. As I had suspected, it was a firmware issue. I would need to access the calibration files I had created years prior in order to solve the problem. I informed Claire, who had been hanging close by, that I would need to connect my laptop to the control system. "Obviously. Whatever you require." Although I was aware of the exact location of the files, I connected my laptop and pretended to search through folders. I noticed 2 Nixora techs whispering while I worked. Somewhere, it should have been documented. These legacy systems are a complete mess. I held back a grin. The conveyor hummed back to life after 45 minutes. The operators went back to work. Claire was both relieved and uneasy at the same time. "Ethan, thank you. What we would have done is unknown to me." I shut down my laptop and said, "Happy to help. Is there going to be anything else?" "Really," she paused. "The CNC machines in Bay 3 are giving us similar problems. Sporadic breakdowns in quality control. The drift of tolerances. While you're here, could you have a look?" I looked at my watch. That would go beyond the scope of work that we agreed upon. I would require an additional contract. Her expression tensed. Be sensible, Ethan. You're here already. I'm acting rationally. I'm going to treat this as the business agreement you made when you fired me. I put my laptop away. If you would like to schedule another consultation, send me an email. Marcus came into stride next to me as I left. Silently, he remarked, it's not just the CNC machines. Everything is beginning to go wrong. Defects are discovered every day through quality control. Customer returns have increased by 30%. I gave a nod but remained silent. Don't you think they're in over their heads? Marcus inquired. It appears that way. He lowered his voice and looked around. Did you not see this coming? I looked him in the eyes. Marcus, I didn't have to see it coming. These systems were created by myself. I am fully aware of the consequences of improper maintenance. And you're going to hold them accountable. I responded even though it wasn't a question. They are already. After that, the calls started to happen often. Claire would get in touch with another emergency once a week, occasionally twice a week. I negotiated a fresh contract each time. Every time, my rate went up a little. And each time, I merely resolved the particular problem for which I was employed. I got a different kind of call 2 months after I left. Mr. This is Daniel Mercer, Trilla Freight's Vice President of Operations, Lee. I straightened my posture in my chair. Mr. Keys, good afternoon. I'm going to get right to the point. Unprecedented problems with quality control are occurring at our Grand Rapids operation. The number of warranty claims has increased. Precision issues have cost us 2 aerospace contracts. According to Claire Morton, you have been offering technical consulting services for some issues. That's right. I want to talk about a more thorough arrangement. I kept quiet and waited. We want to rehire you as a contractor. You have 6 months to work full-time to fix our present problems and accurately record your system expertise. I leaned back in my chair and said, I see. Whatever became of Nixora Labs? A pause. We're giving that relationship another look. Translated, the door was being presented to them. Before answering, I gave myself a little moment of satisfaction. Thank you for the offer, Mr. Keys, but I'm in talks with a number of other businesses right now. My availability is restricted. Quite frankly, he said, name your price. I gave a number that was 3 times what I used to make. Keys made no hesitation at all. All right. Contracts will be drafted for me today. I returned to Velwyn Manufacturing as a contractor 2 days later. There was no sign of Claire. Marcus told me that she had been moved to a different Travella location. I realized how much damage had been done when I reconnected my laptop to the primary control systems. Key firmware was compromised as a result of Nixora's attempts to reverse engineer my calibration processes. Almost 30% of items were failing final quality inspections because their machine learning algorithms had moved tolerances so far out of specification. But when I gained access to the administrative server, I made the most eye-opening revelation. There, I discovered Claire's initial proposal to Travella executives in a folder titled Strategic Plans. It explained how the corporation would save more than $300,000 a year if Nixora Labs took my place. During the transition, it predicted a brief 3% increase in defect rates, which was thought to be reasonable given the cost savings. Claire had done more than simply remove my job in order to modernize. She had compromised quality in order to save money, assuming that anyone could easily maintain the systems I had created. She had never tried to learn the truth about what I did. I summoned Marcus to my office and presented him with the paper. He gave a low whistle. From the beginning, she was aiming for you. Not only me, I answered. Quality. Accuracy. Everything upon which this factory established its fame. So, what are you going to do? Make everything right and then leave again? I gave him a look. No, I replied. I'll make their systems better. I'll then take steps to ensure that this doesn't occur again. How? Marcus inquired. I grinned a little. By making myself unique in a completely different way. That evening, I started working on a new factory management system that would incorporate all of our current machinery while maintaining the necessary records, safeguards, and openness. One that would demonstrate to executives the value of their investment. And one that, at my new contractor fees, would need my continuing consultation to sustain. They had attempted to use algorithms in my place. I would now demonstrate to them the true value of 17 years of human experience. I meticulously fixed all of the factory's systems throughout the course of the following month. I began with the most important production lines, the high-precision car parts and the aerospace components. I updated firmware, performed thorough diagnostics on each piece of equipment, and restored the original calibration settings from my personal backups. Defect rates immediately decreased. The rate of production accelerated. The old efficiency started to buzz on the factory floor. I didn't stop there, though. I kept developing my new management system every night. VELT-Tech, an acronym for Velwin Electronic Tracking and Equipment Calibration, is what I dubbed it. It was my insurance policy, informally. I set up a meeting with Daniel Mercer and the rest of the management team 4 weeks into my employment. With my laptop plugged into the projector, I stood in front of their conference table and declared, the immediate crisis has been resolved. But, in addition to technical problems, you have a structural problem. Keyes leaned forward. Continue. Your executive view was unable to see your quality control metrics. Claire Morton demonstrated cost savings without disclosing the full consequences of her choices. I displayed 3 months' worth of production data on a screen. Defect rates rose, warranty claims spiked, and precision measures failed, as indicated by red lines, although stated expenses fell. Optimization for one variable at the expense of all others results in this. There was silence in the room. The VELT-Tech interface appeared when I clicked to the following slide. I suggest that all industrial systems be fully integrated with executive-level visibility. Measures for quality in real time. Schedules for predictive maintenance. Total openness between corporate headquarters and the manufacturing floor. And this would stop another scenario like the one we just had? Keyes inquired. I answered, it would make the trade-offs visible. You may still decide to put price before quality, but you will do so fully aware of the repercussions. I navigated through other screens that demonstrated how VELT-Tech tracked material flow, monitored every machine, anticipated maintenance requirements, and determined the actual cost per part, including warranty and fault costs. How much time would it take to implement? Keyes inquired. Complete integration will take 3 months. The main architecture has already been constructed by me. And then, who would keep it up? The moment I had been accumulating was finally here. Under a long-term consultancy arrangement, I would. On-site 2 days a week. The VELT-Tech software would remain owned by my business, which would grant Trilla Freight a license that would include complete maintenance and upgrades. Your business? Keyes' eyebrow went up. Lee Industrial Systems. My new consultancy business. Keyes didn't need to know that I hadn't yet formally established the business. One of the other executives remarked, that sounds expensive. Less costly than what just transpired, I said calmly. Over the last 3 months, I've estimated the cost of the quality crisis, including lost contracts, warranty claims, overtime, and emergency repairs. I displayed the sum on a different slide, which was little over $3.8 million. The room fell silent once more. My consulting fee would be $320,000 per year. The annual cost of the VELT-Tech license would be $150,000. Total expense each year, $470,000. Contrast it with your most recent defeats. You've given this a lot of thought, Mr. Lee, Keyes said, examining me closely. I answered, I've had time to think. About worth. Regarding knowledge. Regarding what occurs when businesses view humans as replaceable components. Slowly, he nodded. You've made a strong argument, but I'll have to present it to the board. Marcus was waiting outside as the conference came to a close. As I made my way back to my makeshift workplace, he settled into step next to me. How did it go? He inquired. We'll see. They either appreciate what I have to offer or they don't. Marcus grinned. After the recent beating they received, they will appreciate it. I came to a halt at my door. By the way, Lee Industrial Systems will require a shop floor manager. Someone familiar with these devices, these individuals. Are you interested? After blinking in surprise, Marcus grinned gently. Are you serious? Very serious. I'm done helping other folks succeed. It's time for me to construct something myself. A week later, Daniel Mercer gave me a call to confirm that my proposal was approved for all 6 of Trilla's manufacturing facilities, not just the Grand Rapids one. When I stood in the observation room above the factory floor 6 months later, I saw that everything was going more smoothly than it had in the past. Daniel Mercer and an unidentified executive were standing next to me. This is our new Chief Operations Officer, Elena Brooks, Keyes introduced herself to Ethan. We exchanged handshakes. Elena pointed to the factory and remarked, very impressive operation. Your VelTTech system has transformed our visibility into manufacturing quality, Daniel informs me. I answered, it just makes visible what was always there. Well, given what transpired in Pittsburgh, it has captured the interest of our entire executive team. I arched an eyebrow. Keyes appeared uneasy. Elena clarified, we modernized our Pittsburgh facility in a similar manner. With equally devastating outcomes. However, we were able to identify it before it escalated into a major issue because of your system. That's good to hear. Elena went on, there's something else you should know. Claire Morton was fired. I maintained a neutral expression. I understand. Not just moved, Keyes continued. Finished. Following our discovery of a blatant conflict of interest, that she had accepted consulting fees from Nixora Labs while employed by us. That was it. Claire had been doing more than just reducing expenses to win over CEOs. Nixora had been giving her kickbacks. Elena added, we've also implemented a new corporate policy. Quality impact analyses must be a part of any cost-cutting measures. Additionally, appropriate knowledge transfer procedures must be included in all technical systems. That makes sense, I said. Elena grinned. In fact, we're referring to it as the Lee Protocol. The worth of institutional knowledge was demonstrated by your VelTTech system. I gazed down at the factory floor, where Marcus was educating new technicians, operators were using equipment they understood with assurance, and quality measurements were shown on big screens all over the place. Operating on my system. Each of which brings substantial money for Lee Industrial Systems. I murmured softly, thank you for that. You don't realize how much it means. I was standing in my new office in downtown Grand Rapids on a cool autumn morning, precisely 1 year after I had been fired. I could see the Grand River through the window, with the trees along its banks turning gold and red. There were now 12 workers in the area, including Lee Industrial Systems engineers, technicians, and support personnel. Marcus's message chimed on my phone. The upgrade of Bay 4 is finished. Every system is green. I grinned. As I concentrated on growing to new clients, Marcus, who had taken over as my right-hand man, managed implementation at all Trilla facilities. In only the last quarter, we have gained 3 new manufacturing enterprises. The industry had begun to talk, about the founder who had made a termination into a victory, about the system that connected outdated equipment and contemporary analytics, and about the company that specialized in conserving old knowledge. An industry publication with our story on the cover was sitting on my desk. How Lee Industrial Systems is closing the knowledge gap and saving manufacturing millions. Below it was an invitation to present on the same panel that Claire Morton had previously led at the automation conference the following year. I grabbed a framed picture of my daughter wearing her cap and gown from last spring's graduation. She had recently begun working in industrial engineering, partly as a result of witnessing her father's career collapse and then flourish. During her graduation luncheon, she told me, "Dad, you didn't just take lemons and make lemonade. You created a lemonade empire by using lemons." The door to my office opened. My helper stuck her head in. "Your 10 o'clock has arrived. The family of Velwyn." I gave a nod. Long-retired Arthur Bellamy had contacted Trilla about repurchasing his former business. He sought my opinion on how to modernize without sacrificing quality. After adjusting my tie, I made my way to the meeting room. No longer a worker, but a reliable advisor. It is now necessary rather than disposable. Proving someone wrong isn't always the greatest form of retaliation. They never thought you could be what you are now. And that's the story, one of reconstruction as much as retaliation. Growing stronger, improving your life, and letting your accomplishments speak for themselves are sometimes better ways to get even than using drama or rage. Remember to invest in yourself, create boundaries, and choose peace if you're facing injustice or betrayal. Moving forward with dignity is what healing entails, not forgetting. Leave a comment with your experience if you've ever encountered something similar. Let's make room for genuine conversation, growth, and empathy. How can one rise above, in your opinion?